guys, this is another deck tech. This one's for Vorel of the Hull Clade. He makes counters, so this deck naturally wants a lot of counters. So Vorel is at 3-drop, 1 a green and a blue, so this is a Simic deck. For green and a blue, tap him. For each counter on target artifact, creature, or land, put another of those counters on target permanent. So it doubles counters. Because this is only a 2-color deck, a Simic deck, you don't need quite as many fixing lands. So I have 15 basic forests, 16 basic islands, and a few utility lands. Rogue's Passage, because with Vorel's ability you want to make something super huge, and when you do, you don't want it to be blocked. So Rogue's Passage is there for that reason. Evolving Wilds, since I have so many basics, I can fetch for any one of my basics. Temple of Mystery, the Scry blue land, because it's always nice to see what you got next. Oran Reef, the Vast Wood. Whenever a creature comes into the battlefield, if I tap this, it comes in with a 1/1 counter. But the creature has to be green. So, all my creatures are basically green. Yavimaya Coast, the blue-green Pain land. Lumbering Falls, the blue-green Man land, which becomes a 3/3 green and blue elemental creature with hexproof. Simic Growth Chamber, the Bounce Simic land, so it adds blue and green to my mana pool. Really sweet. And finally, Alchemist's Refuge, which lets me play things as if they had flash. Alright, we're going to start with the creatures, because this is a fairly creature-heavy deck. Champion of Lambholt. It is a great creature to have when you want to make sure that things get through, because creatures with power less than its power can't block creatures that I control. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under my control, put a 1/1 counter on Champion of Lambholt, so it just gets bigger. Master of Biomancer is an anthem effect for each other creature that I control on the battlefield. So if I make this guy really huge, all of my creatures ETB with his power, basically, as well as their base toughness. Fathom Mage, because if it evolves, I get to draw a card, so it's really good in this deck. Voidstalker is kind of like Gomazoa, but it's not as good. But if there's a threat on the field, you can tap this and put this on the top of your library and put target permanent on the top of the owner's library. So it's really cool. Creature, I mean. Nimbus Swimmer is in here because I needed something else with counters. And it's flying. Crewfix amasses a lot of mana, and this deck likes to have a lot of mana. Also, infinite hand size. Courser of Crewfix, because I play a lot of lands, and Courser of Crewfix is great in any green deck. Wolfear's Silverheart, because he makes creatures really big. Mistcutter Hydra, because counters. And Pro Blue, so he can't be countered. Spike Weaver, one of those counter engines. Yeah. He comes in with 3 1/1 counters. You can remove a counter from him and put it on another target creature, or remove a counter from him and fog. Simic Sky Swallower, just because it's flying, trample, and shroud. It's a really good creature. Kiora's Follower, which I usually use to untap Vorel. Experiment 1, because Evolve. Acidic Slime, because it's a green deck, and artifacts and lands are a problem. And enchantments. Vigian Graft Mage, because I can put counters on other things. You can also pay 1 in a blue and untap target creature with a 1/1 counter on it, so it's really useful. Cloudfin Raptor, another evolved creature, but this one has flying. Great opening hand with 1. Aquastrand Spider, another graft creature. And for 1 in a green, target creature with a 1/1 counter gains reach until end of turn. Clone, because I have a lot of good things in here. Or other people have a lot of good things. Clone lets you copy all of them. Lore Scale Coatl, which I've taken to calling Sneaky Simic Snake. Whenever you draw a card, you put a 1/1 counter on it. And this deck can draw cards. Archaeomancer, because I run a lot of instants and sorceries, so this is good to get them back. Zamek Guildmage, he puts additional 1/1 counters on creatures. He also lets me draw cards if I remove 1/1 counter from a target creature I control. Renegade Krasis, another evolved creature, but whenever he evolves, you can basically evolve all of your creatures. You can put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it, which is typically all of them. Progenitor Mimic, another clone effect, but this one copies. So you put a copy of target creature onto the battlefield, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you get another one of these creatures, and the tokens stay. Forgotten Ancient, baby cakes in the EDH world. This guy is an all-star in this deck. He moves counters to everyone. Whenever a player plays a spell, you put a 1/1 counter on it, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you can move any number of 1/1 counters to any number of permanents. Prime Speaker Zagana, one of my main card draw engines in this deck. If you soul bond her with Wolf-Ear Silverheart, it's really good. Edric, because I'm playing a Simic deck, and diverting attention from me is good, so he goes great in this deck. Crown Ceratok. He has Trample, and each creature with a 1/1 counter on it has Trample. So, very, very effective utility creature. Sturmgeist, power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in my hand. Typically that's a lot, because I draw a lot of cards. Whenever whenever this deals combat damage to a player, I get to draw a card, making him bigger. Spike Feeder, another one of those 1/1 counter creatures. It has the same first ability as Spike Weaver. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature by removing a 1/1 counter from this. But if you remove a 1/1 counter on this as well, you can gain 2 life. So good late game. Tromokratis, I literally put this in the deck just to piss my friend off. But it's actually really good in the deck. This is a promo Tromokratis, which I've taken it calling promo Tromo. But he's really good for blocking, because all creatures have to block him. So he's a big body. So you can block, you can have him to block, but you can also attack and swing out, and someone just basically has to lose all their creatures to get rid of him. Trinket Mage, mainly just to get Soul Ring, but you can also get Spellbook with this. Mercfiend Liege makes all of my blue and green creatures bigger, and since Prophet of Crufix was banned, I had to take that out, so this goes in. So you can untap all green and blue creatures at the beginning of each other player's untap step. So really good. And Experiment Crage, which has all activated abilities of each creature with a 1/1 counter on it. And you can tap it to put a 1/1 counter on target creature. So it goes really well in this deck. Alright, let's move on to the artifacts. Ring of Evo's Isle, because I'm playing a blue-green deck, so this is the best artifact to have. +2, colorless. Equipped creature gains hexproof until end of turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on equipped creature if it's blue, and it equips for 1. Soul Ring, because it's a commander deck. Sun Crusher, because with Vorel and Experiment Crage, I can put a bunch of 1/1 counters on this thing. Remove a 1/1 counter from it and destroy target creature, or remove a 1/1 counter from it and bounce it back to your hand. And it always comes into play with 2 1/1 counters on it. So, because I always tap blue and green. So it's an infinite loop. Swiftfoot Boots, because Vorel tends to get targeted, so I can give him hexproof. Lux Cannon, another thing that I target with Vorel. If it gets, you tap it to put a charge counter on it. If it gets 4 charge counters, you can remove them and destroy target permanent. Mind Stone, Mana Rock, but it's also a draw engine. If you sack it, you can draw a card. Spellbook, because I took Reliquary Tower out, but I'll probably put another Reliquary Tower in here. But Spellbook is really good just to have infinite hand size. And Pristine Talisman, a mana rock that adds 1 generic mana to my mana pool, but I also gain 1 life when I tap it. So sometimes I just tap it just to get that life. Finally, the in-between, we got a legendary enchantment artifact, Bow of Nylea, that gives all my attacking creatures Death Touch, which is actually really good. But you can also tap it and pay a 1 colorless and a green, and you can put a 1/1 counter on target creature, which is what I usually use it for, or it deals 2 damage to target creature with flying, or you gain 3 life, or put up to 4 target creatures from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order. So it's very useful. Bringing on to the enchantments, Bread for the Hunt. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Really great in this deck. Rhystic Study, because it's super annoying and it draws me a lot of cards, because people usually don't pay the 1 unless I'm really ahead. I have Kiora, the Crashing Wave, in here, just to draw a card and use an additional land each turn. I don't really use her ultimate, but it is pretty sweet when it comes off. When it gets off, at the beginning of your end step, put a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token onto the battlefield. Really sweet. I'm gonna move on to the instance now. Cyclonic Rift, because this is a blue deck, and Cyclonic Rift is amazing. I can basically board wipe everyone's permanents, 9-land permanents except for mine, and then just swing out. It's really sweet. Biomass Mutation, which pumps all of my creatures at +X/+X, where X is the amount of mana that was paid. And then I have a little bit of counter magic. Mystic Genesis, counter target spell, put an XX green ooze creature token onto the battlefield, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. So I typically want to do this on a really big spell, especially if it's indestructible or hexproof. Dissolve, counter target spell, scry 1. The scry is actually pretty relevant. Counterspell, just counter target spell for 2 blue. Dissipate, counter target spell, exile that spell instead of putting it in the owner's graveyard. Spell Crumple, which counters target spell, and it puts that spell on the bottom of its owner's library. And then you put it back on the bottom of your library. So, it's really good. And finally, probably, I think the best target spell, the best counter spell in this deck, Plasm Capture. You can counter target spell, and then whatever that converted mana cost of that spell was, you get that mana as colorless, and you get it at the beginning of your pre-combat next pre-combat main phase. So typically, what I do is I have Crewfix out, and I bank this mana into Crewfix. And finally, the sorceries. I have Curse of the Swine, because it's always nice to exile creatures. And it's basically like a Beast Within. Though a Beast Within would probably go well in this deck as well. But I don't have one. Bramble Crush. It's not as good as Krosan Grip, but I don't have a Krosan Grip yet. It says destroy target non-creature permanent, but it's a sorcery. Krosan Grip is an instant, and it has split second, so it can't be countered. So it's infinitely better. Give and Take. Either put 3 1/1 counters on target creature, or remove all 1/1 counters on target creature you control. Draw that many cards. I typically fuse it, but you can use either. Urban Evolution, draw 3 cards, and you can play an additional land this turn. Increasing Savagery, the spell that keeps on giving, because I can put 5 1/1 counters on target creature, or after I've used it, or if I had to discard it for some reason, I can flash it back and put 10 1/1 counters on target creature. And then with Vorel, I can double that, and it'll become 20. And then I'm just lethal. Tezzeret's Gambit, you can pay either blue or Phyrexian. I typically pay the blue, though. Draw 2 cards and then proliferate, so I can make more counters. And Explosive Vegetation for ramp. And that is my Vorel of the Hulk Clade deck. It's also really fun to play, and it was the first time I really made a deck on my own. So I hope you enjoyed this deck tech. I'll have a few more videos up later. Thanks for watching.